Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Shake Sales. I'm your host, Maggie Bloom, the sales evangelist at Mailshake. And today I am super excited to talk with Katherine Caldwell, who's the founder of Catch Consulting. And what Katherine does is she helps salespeople book meetings with video. So the two of us are talking over this video interview today. And she was also named Top 100 Most Powerful Women in Sales of 2022. So the topic today, since Katherine talks all about video, is video and prospecting and how we can implement it. So Katherine, thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to get some questions answered for you.
Yeah. Can you give us a little bit of background about yourself?
Sure. I was in a sales development seat for about 2 years out of college. And during that time, video was really a main factor in booking meetings for me. And it was really interesting. It evolved into sales leaders reaching out to me and asking if I could train their salespeople and how I'm doing videos. So like instead of taking a discovery call with me, they would ask me to instead come train their team. So I started monetizing it and eventually just became very lucrative. And as you know, and probably all the listeners know, a lot of people are starting to use video now. So 2 years ago when I started, it was more of an anomaly, and now people are really taking advantage of it. And I have the pleasure and opportunity of coaching a lot of teams on how to actually get responses and have a solid framework on it so that it pays off.
Yeah, awesome. I love that too, how you got into it. It's like sales leaders were reaching back out to you saying, hey, can you train us on this, instead of really going after what you were selling at the time or the company you were working for. It just shows how impactful all those videos were and you were sending over. And kind of gets me to my first question here is, you're right, like 2 years ago when I was in sales, not a lot of people were using video as much. And that's become a bit more mainstream. But I feel like a lot of the teams I talk to, like their most creative reps or like those ones that are testing things out are the ones that use video first. And then maybe the rest of the team kind of catches on like, hey, this worked for so-and-so. Let's try this with video. But I don't see like managers, and I could be wrong. Like obviously I'm not a part of every sales team out there and get the intel that way. But I don't see sales managers really like from the top down, like encouraging people to use video on their team. So what do you think are some things that sales managers can do to encourage their reps to use video?
It's an interesting question because there definitely is a disconnect there. A lot of times when I talk to sales leaders, they are wanting their reps to do video, but the reps don't want to do it. And then it's also interesting how many SDRs I have in my inbox that are actually paying out of pocket for one-on-one training with me, or asking me for help to pitch their sales managers that they want to start doing video and they need enablement. So it's a really weird disconnect where some people are wanting to do it and some people are really opposed. And so my job, I feel like, is to create that unity between teams so that everyone's kind of in alignment. But a lot of times the way we overcome that is just what you said. We start with kind of test subjects. So I'll do a smaller group of SDRs on a team. And once they see the results, the other people really want to get in on it and understand the process and how to get the same results. So I think probably for the question was for sales managers to get their team kind of more cohesive on it. I think what it is the managers aren't really enabling their team to do video, and that's probably because of their own imposter syndrome or fear of not knowing how to do it. And the only way to really get your entire team aligned is to give them all the same framework. So I think that's a mistake a lot of sales leaders make is they say, okay, start saying these videos and, say whatever you want, or, try to test some different things out. But the truth is a lot of SDRs are really early in their career and they do need that framework and that guidance of how do I appear? What should I say? What should I wear? And all those different questions. So that's kind of where I can come in and make sure everyone, if it's a group of 10, make sure all 10 people are on the same page and we can pick things out like virtual backgrounds and titles for vidyards and, what to put in the email and make sure everything's really cohesive. And then the best thing about that, in my opinion, is that we can track the results a lot easier there. And then we know how to make tweaks. Because if everyone's doing 10 different things, it's really hard to track like what's working and what's not.
Totally. Yeah. And I think it's like you said, it's like, this other branch of outreach. Obviously video is going to be sent in a specific channel, but I still think it's its own playing field of, what should we say in it? Similar to a cold email or a cold calling script. It's like all of these different things have playbooks, and this is one of those things where, yeah, it's like someone's doing one thing, the manager is telling you something else, but not really giving you guidance on it. And do you feel like it's just because it's become a newer thing? So like you said, managers have these imposter syndromes, and you feel like the best way to combat that is having like a framework in place?
Yeah, so that actually brings up an interesting point of managers actually not knowing how to use video in their sales cycle because like we just mentioned, video is kind of newer in the prospecting realm. And so if a manager has been in the managing seat for more than a couple years, well, they don't have any experience in video. So how would they know what works and what doesn't?
Yeah, absolutely. And and that's obviously where you come in and your company comes in to help, train those teams, which is awesome, because I think it does come from awareness for those managers who've been in a managerial role for a while and haven't really been in the front driver's seat of having those videos in there. So we talked a lot about frameworks, creating this framework for your team so everyone's on the same page, so it's easier to track, just like email, just like cold calling, things like that. So what type of framework should we be using with video?
Yeah, so I use a 5-step framework. It's introduction, observation, problem, solution, and call to action. So I think if you hit on those 5 things, you're going to be okay. And I think something a lot of people could implement today if they've already tried video and it's not working. The first thing I say is to stop introducing yourself. So stop saying, hey, Mike, my name's Katherine. I work for Catch Consulting. This is what I do, and this is why you should care about me. We just completely skip that step. It's a waste of your, 45-second attention span that the prospect has. So I just go straight into, hey, Mike, I don't know if you get videos like this a lot, but I'm reaching out because of this observation I made about you. Figured you are dealing with this problem. Here's the consequence of the problem, and here's a quick solution I thought of for you. Would you be open to a conversation? So just keeping it really buyer-centric, prospect-focused, and then kind of just plugging my solution at the very end and seeing if it sounds interesting to them versus trying to drag them into a meeting and telling them all these different, benefits and different aspects of my business that could help them. It's very prospect-focused.
Got it. Yeah. And it's like, I think once we introduce, because a lot of what you're saying is very similar to how a lot of sales managers think of cold email or cold calling, like should be prospect focused. You shouldn't just start talking about yourself, but like how it's relevant for them. Ask for the next step, not necessarily like a meeting. And I feel like sometimes it's just because it's this different channel, like, oh, it's video. So like, let's just throw out all these things about sales that we know and these processes because, it's way different, which obviously there's some differences in there, but like, it's like, no, at the end of the day, we still want to bring up something relevant. We don't want to start talking about ourselves to begin with. Like you said, if that's a tip that you take away from today, and then just kind of get into it and why this would be relevant for them with a call to action that's more interest based than trying to book a meeting with someone there. So I love that you put it so simply because I think it's just, again, like you said, imposter syndrome where it's like, I don't even know where to begin with this, or I don't know how we could structure it. And you just gave a framework that's super simple to implement.
Yeah, I think the talking about ourselves too much in our outreach is really a panic instinct or a panic response. And everyone knows, we all know things about ourselves, and it's hard to know what we know about a stranger, right? So when you start recording yourself and you're on the spot, your natural instinct is anxiety and to start talking about things that you know for sure are true versus making an observation about something and kind of trying to pinpoint a problem they might be facing is a lot more, a lot more intimidating than just going, hey, I'm Katherine, this is what I do, and these are the things I know, because I feel very confident talking about what I know, but it's a lot more panic inducing to try to guess what someone else might be going through.
Yeah, and even on, I've done a lot of demos for Mailshake, for example, and it's always uncomfortable to, like point out that pain, for example. It's like the most uncomfortable thing about my job when I'm on demos or, ask questions that are digging deeper into the pain. But I think that's what makes really good sales reps in doing any type of outreach or any interactions with their leads. So I like the way that you put it. It is a little bit stressful, but doable. And I think the more you practice it, probably the better you're going to become.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. And so I know you talked a little bit about, don't start introducing yourself at the beginning of video, just because that's kind of like a panic reflex. But I've gotten videos where, it's hard for me to tell if it's like personalized just from like looking at the beginning of it. And then I do end up watching it and it ends up not being personalized. But how can we show like prospects, because that's their first view, is kind of like a, beginning, I don't know, the thumbnail, for example. Like, how can we show that to prospects that we've actually personalized that video for them?
I'm going to sneeze, so I'm so sorry if I sneeze while I'm talking, but I can feel it coming on.
You're totally good.
The answer is, so I've always felt like the Vidyard or Loom, when someone's holding a whiteboard with the person's name on it, I've always thought that was extremely corny. And now I get that feedback a lot from managers that it's just like they get so many of those that now it doesn't even matter. And to me, it almost seems like me-centric to send someone a video where I'm holding a whiteboard with their name and it's almost like, look at me and what I did for you type of thing. And then a lot of people also put the title of their video. So if they're using an enablement tool like Vidyard, they'll put the title of like, John, I made this video for you. And once again, I think that pulls the direction towards me and what I do and like how I can help versus being like, this is a consultative video that's only for you. So I always try to make my title something like, hey, John, thought you might find this interesting, or something more specific of like, read this article that you're in, or something like that. That's more them centric and would make them interested in watching the video. So that's kind of the first problem that we have to get over, is someone has to actually open and watch. But then for them to know that it's just for them is a whole different story. But I think it really starts with the title of the video and like the blurb that you put in your email that shows that this is not just a rinse and repeat video.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I get that. I think with any type of outreach for things, it's like what's become stale. And you're right. Like I've seen a lot of videos where they have the whiteboard with the person's name on it. So I think it's just something that's become, like you said, the people you talk to are getting 10 of those videos a week or something like that. Like they've already seen it before. So I love what you said of just making sure that the title is always catered to them, because they can't copy and paste that same video over to 20 people. So it still feels personalized to that person.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Got it. Awesome. Thanks for going through that and, just giving some tips here. And the last thing I just want to talk about is, like, let's say for sales managers listening today, I know you said, there could be an imposter syndrome with, creating a playbook for video, but what are some tips, that you could give managers for creating that playbook?
I think make sure you have some like examples of what have worked. So if you see other people, like a lot of people post on LinkedIn about their videos working, honestly, just reach out to them and see what happens. And what they say, reach out to me. But I think, having the framework and testing it out a couple times. And then I think it's really important to have like a general team meeting about this is what we're going to do. This is the approach and everyone's going to try it, versus being like, okay, everyone, like take a look at your sequence and see if you want to put a video in, like no worries. If not, like I think really having a protocol for video versus just kind of letting like top performers try it out. I think it's good to have everyone on the same page and everyone has it in their sequence. Then also making sure the change management is there. So a lot of sales managers will be like, oh, we tried video, it didn't work. And I'm like, okay, can you log into Vidyard and I can kind of see the library and what has been sent? And they actually don't have that insight. They're actually like, oh, I've never actually like looked at the library, or, oh, there's actually nothing in the library. So it's like, then we discover, okay, reps have just been skipping the video step, or, they tried it twice and it didn't work, so they quit. So making sure, not hand-holding and micromanaging, but making sure that the changes are actually being implemented and that you're not just being, what is it, like the wool over your eyes or something like that? Whatever that is. Like make sure the reps are actually doing the steps that they say they're going to do.
Yeah. And like you said, it's more of these sales managers now being proactive with it instead of reactive. Instead of saying like, hey, this was my SDR that did great and booked like all these meetings with using video, like, and just kind of leaving it at that. Like, and I've even heard in positions before of like a manager saying like, go see what that person did, but actually like being proactive, having meetings about it, having meetings around video, and then creating that playbook instead of like, hey, go not copy, but sort of like, hey, go copy that SDR and what they did because they booked meetings with it. Because I think at the end of the day, it's like, we need to create a framework for any type of outreach, and having that change management in there and viewing it. And I think managers just think it's something that could fall by the wayside. But I hear so many like just sales leaders say, if someone reached out to me with a video on LinkedIn, I would have like more of a chance of responding because all I get are like plain text messages. So it's like, yeah, it's definitely a great way to stand out. It's just making sure that playbook is in place, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. And to your point of maybe one top performer really has it down, I think it's one thing for a manager to be like, hey, Maggie, you're doing really bad at video, but, Riley's doing really well. Go ask her what she's doing. And then it's a whole other story to like enable Riley to put a presentation together and lead a group call and explain all the different steps she's doing. And then, that way Riley only has to explain it once as well, right? Rather than to like a team of 10 and she's building experience and other skill sets too. So there's just a difference between like giving instruction as a manager and making things actually happen and enabling your team.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And then that's enabling that rep to, their next position, because we all know there's always positions after being an SDR for most of us, like 95% of us, where that shows leadership for that person on that team.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks so much, Katherine, for going through that and just talking about, what a manager can do even today to implement some tactics for video and help their team out there too. Before we finish up, where can people find you?
I am on LinkedIn 24/7, so Katherine Caldwell on LinkedIn. My website has all my coaching packages, and I also just launched a masterclass for individual contributors. So all of that can be found and signed up for on catchsolutions.com. So KATCH solutions.com.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely get a copy of that playbook, for individual contributors. Katherine, you gave us so much knowledge today. Thank you so much for being on here. And yeah, thanks everyone for taking a look at another episode of Shake Sales.